Magandang gabi po sa lahat. We are now live here in Global TV Network, also in Good People TV, and of course in our page. This is yours truly, Dr. Josephine Gracie Rojo, also known as your Diet Doctora, for this Monday episode in lieu of our Friday Q&A. Now, actually, I think it's a good news that our Q&A session that is usually mostly every Friday will now become a regular this month, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So that's MWF, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. in the evening here in the Philippines. So I'm not sure since we have a lot of followers who are also abroad, especially hi to all of our members and enrollees in our LCF Masterclass for low carb and fasting nutrition and lifestyle. Thank you so much for joining our masterclass. I am overwhelmed with all of your feedbacks and, of course, the learnings that we were able to take during the last day one of our classes. So if you have questions for those who are not part of our LCF masterclass, this is actually your time. If you have your questions with you, if you have your worries, concerns when regards to intermittent fasting, extended fasting, and of course low carb nutrition or ketogenic diet. So that's actually encompassing because ketogenic diet is like a more strict. It's like a very low carb version of low carb nutrition. So that's actually part of our spectrum, but we limit or we use ketogenic diet for special cases with real indications. Okay? So if you are there, say hi. Hello, Erlinda. Thank you so much for such kind words. Dronska Tapa Honi. I'm not so sure. Girly Canonio, hi! Hello. Thank you so much. Kasi nakapag-power nap ako, I think, before my last patient this afternoon. So, yes, thank you. The power of sleep. I think the members of LCF Masterclass Batch 1 was now able to appreciate how important sleep is. Even the power naps, it's very, very important. So, Carmen Ang Domingo, hello. Nef Perez, hello. Mirna, hello. And we have Angelita Carriaga Agno. Xavier De Souza. Yes, can you say again your question? I think it was about the sustainability of low carb. As to when can we do low carb and when it comes to side effects, negative effects. So your question is actually quite broad, but I'm gonna answer it is as far as I can remember. But if you can type in your question again, it would be much better. From what I can remember, you were first asking how long can we sustain low carb. So when it comes to sustainability, we actually considered low carb as not just a diet, meaning it's not just a temporary fix or some sort of short-term plan, because diets usually people do it is as something that's like a band-aid technique, like a band-aid solution to one problem. Say for example, a woman's getting married and she would like to look at her best in her wedding gown, so she would do a diet in order to do that. But with low carb, actually you have to know first what is your reason why you're doing low carb, because if it's just physical, if it's just weight loss, then you can do low carb for just a month or 2 months. Mostly people achieve their weight goals. But when you want your goal to be optimizing health, that is preventive of damage in the kidneys, in the organs, in our liver, and preventive of general illness. So low carb nutrition is the most sustainable for me personally. When it comes to kind of nutrition that we would like to delve in, it's because low carb nutrition is as natural as human nutrition. We are not restricting animal meat products. We are not restrictive into purely carnivore products. We also advocate eating vegetables if that's what you want. Even the incorporation of fruits from time to time, once you are already at your goal health or goal weight or whatever your goal is, you can actually take those. Those are under our caution list. So I think if you've been following my page, you'll be quite familiar with our food list. So I'm gonna show you here so that you will all appreciate how this lifestyle is actually sustainable. So don't confuse, since we just said that low carb nutrition can actually allow some parts of fruits, even the grains. Even if our group is life without rice, yet we can actually allow rice even the moment you are already healed. Okay, so, but now if you are still healing, and the major cause of your disability, of your illness in the first place, is too much sugar coming from all of those, then we have no right whatsoever to keep on eating them. Unless, of course, you do not want to heal faster. Like, if you want to really take it slow, you don't want to be all right and well and better as soon as possible, then you can make your progress slower. So that is your option. So in here, in our food list, so we have the caution list here. So the caution list here, these are actually under whole natural foods. So that would go fruits, and then root crops, and also grains. So that would include wheat, corn, rice, and all of those others. But we avoid them as much as we can, because we believe that by nature we are not meant to be consuming them all year round. Remember, the discovery of farming, of agriculture, was just discovered 10,000 years ago. And 10,000 years ago, that's the only time that we've been doing the hard work to do the farming. Okay, so we consume them, but we work hard for them. But now, what do? We no longer work hard for our food. We work hard, but mentally, but not physically. We are no longer in the fields. We are no longer sweating it out. We are no longer under the scorching heat of the sun. So now, actually, it is important for us to really think that what we should eat are the ones that our body, our DNA, our genetics, our human biochemistry is really meant to eat. And that is those foods that are actually in our safe list. So we have the meat and poultry products, we have the vegetables, especially the ones growing above ground, we have oils and fats, which would include coconut oil, olive oil, ghee, lard, tallow, fish oil, grass-fed butter, and MCT oil. But of course, all of this, even if they're safe list, it's not saying that you can eat as much as you can buffet style each and every day, because again, part of low carb is also fasting. So even if they're good foods, even if they're right foods, but if you consume them 3 times a day all year round, it will still be too much, unless you are doing very, very heavy workout, that all of those calories that you consume will still be burned, or at least will still be functional, or will be used to form, like, say for example, muscles. Or else you are spending too much for the food that comes to your body that is no longer doing anything more helpful. And as to side effects with low carb and good effects of it, so there are so many, but most of the side effects of low carb actually is just related to electrolyte imbalance. So for those who are listening, you know, no, and if you, of course, if you've been my patient and if you've been part of the masterclass, you'll know the basic electrolytes would be magnesium, potassium, and the most important, sodium chloride. So it's actually two, the sodium and the chloride from salt is very, very essential. Or else, if you do low carb only without properly making sure that you're getting the right nutrients, the right vitamins and minerals, and most importantly, the electrolytes that easily gets depleted each and every day, then you can have a lot of problems. Say for example, it can range from dizziness, headache, palpitations. Some even have blood pressure fluctuations. Some will have constipation, and others can, when they do it wrongly and they confuse low carb with low calorie, they actually go into like a starvation mode, that their hair are falling off, their skin are drying, overall health is actually declining. Especially first, that they saw that they feel light, of course they losing weight, but they're also not functioning very well. Say for example, they cannot focus, they cannot concentrate very well. So those are indication that you are not having enough of the energy requirement and the vitamins and minerals that you need. And as I emphasized in our masterclass, calories are important, but our body are actually used to consuming little calories, but it's not used into consuming less supplements when it comes to electrolytes and vitamins and minerals, because by nature we have a lot of of those electrolytes coming from water. But now, the water that we are taking are now very devoid of any minerals. It's pure water. Yes, it is clean water, unadulterated water, but sadly, it also doesn't have any minerals, especially trace elements that are also essential in our everyday processing. So I hope, Xavier, that was I was able to answer some of your queries, even just a little. But in case you still need more questions, so we can actually kindly type in your message so that I can read it again. And I'm sorry, because of the influx of so many messages, actually I can no longer make sure if I can read everything, but the ones highlighted here: Wilma Sanchez, I think he's been asking many times, effect of diet when it comes to pills. So when you're fasting, as much as possible, you are not consuming anything except water and electrolytes. And pills, although it's very very minimal, as much as possible, if you want to go into a clean fasting, so those medications are better reserved during your eating window. So say for example, if you're fasting for 19 hour for 20 hours, so say for example you have an eating window of 12 noon to 4 o'clock, so you can take your pills at around that time. And as long with oral contraceptive pills, the most important thing there is you take them same time each and every day. So okay, so hello, I hope that answers your questions. And of course, pills are not natural, so if you can go natural, like calendar method, that would be much better. And if you don't want to have a hormonal effect but long term, and you're tired of doing calendar method, you can also do IUD implantation, especially for those who are looking into long term contraception. Because IUD, I think the ones we have here in the Philippines are copper IUD, so they don't secrete, they don't unlike OCPs, unlike injectables, and like the ones intradermal, they will have some hormonal effect because it will alter our natural hormones for women. But with IUD contraception, copper IUD specifically, it won't disrupt, or it won't intervene with your normal hormonal processes, so it's as if it's not there, but it will serve as a very very effective contraception. So hello Sir Robert. Zuyo, ciao Doc, paano po pag may acid or GERD? Paano po ang pag low carb? Kasi 2 weeks na ako nagsisimula low carb, ina-atake po ako ng acid ho. So acid or hyperacidity and GERD is actually not just related to, it might be related to low carb, but low carb can only do good when it comes to your acid. As much as possible, you can try to check on yourself what are the foods that you've been eating, because if you've been following Life Without Rice, you can actually see that we have our food list that actually differs from many of those keto and low carb groups, mainly because we have caution lists here that are mostly approved from other keto groups, but for us, we put them under caution because it can be inflammatory for people who are prone to inflammation, and another one sign of inflammation is actually GERD. So we have here, I would like to emphasize, because this is actually one of those foods that people are seemingly like taking as much as they can as if it's very safe, but no, these may be low carb, these may be 0 calorie if that's what you want, but it could be inflammatory for those who are sensitive to it. Okay, I would like to emphasize for those who are sensitive to it, and that would be cheese, dairies, and all its related products, including your all-purpose cream. Yes, your favorite all-purpose cream are under our caution list. And aside from that, what we have as lifestyle modification is also important. So lifestyle is not just about food, but also day-to-day practices. So if I can give a tip for those who are trying to do low carb and having GERD or hyperacidity, can you try to make your last meal intake at least 4 hours before your bedtime? So say for example, if you want to sleep at around 10, make sure that your last food intake is around 6 p.m. If you want to sleep at 9, make sure your last meal intake is around 5 in the afternoon. And also, if not only that, you would also need to be mindful about your water intake. So if you want to have a more restful sleep, and for you to have that less GERD attack, you have to have your water intake limited comes nighttime. So you can take your water at most would be 2 hours before your bedtime, and comes morning on your daytime you can just take all the water that you want. So I'm not gonna limit your water intake. If you want to take 2 liters, 3 liters, it's up to you. But actually taking more than 2 liters will actually won't have any more added benefits. So it's just another extra work for your kidney that also doesn't need more work. Okay, so try to do that, and I hope it will do you well. But if not, I really advise to seek proper consult, because some episodes of GERD, and especially those with hyperacidity and ulcer formation, are actually better treated first before they do like some sort of intermittent fasting or low carb. But eventually everybody, majority, there's only very few people who are contraindicated really to do fasting and low carb, but generally it is safe. So Myra Makutai, been into LCIF for 3 months now. What could have been the cause why I feel bloated? So you can look at your foods. I myself personally, I eat more on the meat, because vegetables makes me bloated. Okay, even if they're low carb. I'm sensitive actually to FODMAP. So FODMAP. So FODMAP is a fermented oligo di mono a monosaccharide. Okay, so it's all under the fibrous family of vegetables. So they get fermented in our stomach, but if we are sensitive to it, it can cause us bloating, it can cause us some degree of stomach upset if you are sensitive to FODMAP. So try to check your food when which of them are keto approved, low carb approved, but are high in FODMAP. So the most common I think would be cabbage, some certain fibrous like the ones oxalates also FODMAPs, and the ones rich in oxalates like nuts, even if it's almond nuts. And of course we also have coconut. So coconut can also have a lot of that, because as we consume many coconut flour, so that can actually be fermented, of course. And once those are fermented by our good bacteria in our stomach, so if we are sensitive to it, that can cause some degree of bloating for those who are sensitive to it. So try to make a food diary, as so my usual advice for my patient, always have a food diary, so that when you're feeling not so well, you can always look back and you can draw actually a pattern where you are most sensitive, where you don't feel so good after eating such. So those are the things that you can be aware of. So for those who are taking a lot of vegetables and plant-based under low carb, try to make sure that you are not oxalate sensitive. Oxalate that can cause a lot of aches and pains in the body, and FODMAPs that can cause bowel upset, stomach ache, and bloating. Okay. How about Jennifer Baharo Caretas? Hi po, from Cavite. Is it okay not to eat rice and taking low carbs while on insulin medication and practicing 12-12, 3 meals a day? So for those with already medical conditions like insulin dependent diabetes mellitus, it's actually better to consult with doctor first. And rice is not the only source of food. People in other countries there are also a lot of people in other countries that are not consuming rice. It's just that rice is like a staple for us. It's more of cultural and traditional, but it's actually not nutritional need. So we have to emphasize that. If there are others who will tell you that it's not right, so try to tell that to Americans, to Europeans, and for those who are non-rice eaters. Rice eaters are mostly Asians, but it doesn't mean that rice is essential. So if you want to slowly lower your insulin dose, you can do so yourself. There is a computation on how you can compute your insulin based on your carbohydrate intake. Actually, I know you were usually taught about that, by your physician, on how to calculate. So you can actually adjust. Okay, we don't need to maximize our maximum limit of insulin intake. So it will be up to you, but it's best, of course, to consult a low carb practitioner, and if not a low carb practitioner, I know also a lot of diabetologists can say, if you're afraid, like one of my patients, I think she asked permission to her doctor, who is not a low carb practitioner, and she asked if I can do low carb. So she was advised against it. So I said to her, the next time you ask, don't ask if I can try to do low carb. Try to ask, Doc, is it okay for me to avoid sweets? Is it okay to avoid sugar? Is it okay to avoid rice that elevates my blood sugar? You ask that way, and no doctor will ever tell you to say no, you should consume sweets, no, you should consume all those sugar. Because if you have that kind of doctor, I think you really have to find another one, because I don't know any doctor who will advise his patient to keep on eating sugar. That is just a no-no. But I also understand that not everybody is knowledgeable that actually rice, once it enters our bloodstream, it becomes glucose. It can no longer be differentiated from the glucose coming from your table sugar. So a cup of rice is actually equivalent to 10 to 12 teaspoon of white sugar. So it's up to you. Are you going to get your glucose spike needing insulin injection because of that rice? Or do you want to be forever dependent with that kind of scenario of just being dependent of your routine, actually being dependent on your medications, and not your medications or your other things, dependent on your life, how you would want to do it? So of course, as this is just a general knowledge, as for you, as to what you will exactly want to do, it should be under the guidance of a medical practitioner, especially for those with already diagnosed diabetes, especially those who are already insulin dependent. Okay. So Jane Miguel, yes, GERD is actually just like many illness. We usually give medicine for GERD, but that medicine is not a one-time fix. It's like just covering the symptoms, but it will not heal the root cause, because the root cause would be the relaxation of your sphincter of your esophagus, wherein it allows passage or allows reflux of gastric acid going out up to your mouth. Okay, so it will you will be able to feel the acid and the sensation in your mouth when there is reflux, and the root cause of that is actually inflammation. So if you want to lower your inflammation, you can be given steroids, but steroids will again add another kind of inflammation in your system in another way. But the natural way to lower your inflammation is to just eat the right foods. Do not eat the foods that makes your body inflame in the first place. And what's the number one highly inflammatory foods that we've been taking? It's actually carbohydrates rich in sugar, fructose, and even certain kinds of starches, and all of those, especially those paired with toxic oils. So the perfect combination would be used to be the go-to foods, like biscuits, crackers, baked goodies, all of those breads. Those are made of highly elevated sugar content, cooked in shortening, margarine, and toxic oils that are both highly inflammatory and nothing nutritional about them, but all just the bad things combined, and then with lots of flavor that tastes so yummy, that tastes so addicting. So that is where the problem lies. Okay. Rosemary Villa, watching from Milan, Italy. Yay! Hello! Low carb diet and 16.8 IF since last month. Up to now, I see good results. That's good to know. That's really, really good to know. So for those who think those are personal testimonials, so we have Rosemary here from Milan, Italy. So Ashima Chauhan, hi Doc, can people who are taking steroids do low carb and keto successfully? Yes, they can be successful, but not as successful, okay? Because even if you're doing low carb, even if you're doing keto, your body will keep on producing glucose, because that is what steroids do. It will induce gluconeogenesis. It will demand glucose. So doing low carb will make your overall glucose burden less, because you will lessen the one, because before you are eating a lot of glucose and you are making more glucose from your steroids. But when you do low carb, you are now going to just have a glucose spike just coming from steroids. But of course, once you heal, it is really really important to try to wean off from steroid. What is your steroids for? Autoimmune disease, asthma, allergies, those are made by inflammation from low carb in the first place. So actually, doing a healthy lifestyle like low carb and doing it properly with the right guidance can make you wean off from your steroids itself. Okay? And what else? Gian Diaz Mangahas, paano po diet sa PCOS? So, PCOS is just a symptom. It's part of the spectrum of effects of insulin that is already too much in the system. So, insulin resistant. Okay? So, we thought before that those women with PCOS are just fat. They have like hirsutism, or the ones that they have mustache here. They have a face that's becoming like male-like. Okay, so they have a masculine feature even if they're female, and some are fat, some are overweight, some have a lot of acne. But actually not everyone. Others who have PCOS are looking like very very feminine, very slim, but their ovaries are having a lot of cyst formation. So we can see that the effects of insulin can be different in many people, in different in from person to person, but it will always have that bad effect. So if you want, you can start first by asking what made you become insulin resistant in the first place, what made you develop PCOS in the first place. And the answer usually to that is that usually the added sugar and overall carbohydrate intake. So we always go back to our food list. So usually the danger list, so where is it? So the danger list, so these are the things that must be avoided. So ultra processed products, pastries, pasta, we also have chips, desserts, cakes, ice cream, okay? So all of those, baked products, french fries, corn, potato fries, so all kinds of sugar, brown, cocoa, agave, honey. So we have corn syrups and the processed oils and condiments. If you are using canola oil, sunflower oil, safflower, sesame, other most vegetable oils, margarine and shortening, and the worst kind of drinks. We have regular soft drinks, fruit juices, even the zero calorie soft drinks are not allowed. Beer, milk tea, fraps, and all of those processed drinks that we've been poisoned with and we've been brainwashed to drink because they are instagrammable, they look good in the photo, but they are doing damage to your body. So if you want to reverse that, just try to look into our food list and see how you're doing, what kind of foods that you've been keep eating, so you can now try to focus on the safe list and see how you will react. Okay? Aurora Rosas, hi doc, what if you have stage 4 CKD? Are they allowed to eat meat and veggies with salt? So stage 4 CKD or stage 4 chronic kidney disease is already part of the end stage kidney disease, okay? So if we are about to think of it, it got damaged actually, not because of meat. It's not because of salt, but it's still because of too much sugar. It's just that the moment it's already damaged, the body is already not capable. The kidney is no longer not capable of actually filtering properly. So the salt gets stopped and all of those gets problematic. But if the patient is still not on dialysis, so actually we still have some preservations. We can still preserve some parts of those kidneys that are still functioning. And one way to do that is just to remove the inciting factor in the first place. And what is that? It's actually just sugar and carbohydrates and all those toxic foods. And some proteins also can be damaging. If it's mostly, with my experience, I experience a lot of kidney damage for those who are consuming a lot of plant-based proteins like beans, legumes. You also have nuts when eaten too much, so that also can cause a lot of kidney damage. So it's really better if you can try to eat the foods that are safe. So meat, vegetables, for me, they're all okay, but given of course they're not to be taken all day, every day, 3 times a day, or else you're not doing yourself any favor, because in the first place, again, we are not built to keep on eating 24 hours a day, even 12 hours a day. Eating 12 hours a day is just too much. It should be done maybe once every month or once a year to be eating 12 hours a day. Eating from 7 in the morning until 7 in the evening, it's just not natural. We are not supposed to eat that. We're not supposed to eat that way, because before we don't have any food readily available by 7 in the morning, or else the only ones you can eat are just whatever you find nearby, so in the wild. So what else can you find? Maybe some nuts, and sometimes it's poisonous. So actually, we've evolved not to just trust to eat whatever is there, or and we can just wait until the proper meal is there, and it's usually around midday or afternoon. Okay, so yes, for me, I can eat them, for even if they have CKD stage 4, as long as it's under monitoring, under direct supervision of a doctor, and of course proper monitoring of certain parameters, and most importantly, if they can also do some cycles of intermittent fasting, that would be much better. So in Daijin Garuta, my sister is in her fourth day of doing low carb. So wow, that's really really good news. But hindi ko na nakita kung ano ang sobra, because hello Xavier, yes, glucose raises insulin. Yes, electrolytes can be any time of the day, both fasting and feasting. Yes, both fasting and feasting. Usually, if you're just doing short-term fast, like intermittent fasting in a day, so it's up to you. So usually, I reserve electrolytes rather if I feel like I want to break my fast, like I feel like tempted to eat, but I know I shouldn't be eating because I've had dinner last night, so I'm sure the food that I have is still there. So I can drink my electrolyte drink to help me bridge the gap from that hungry time until my desired eating window. Okay? Hi Doc, is it normal? Magkasipon ako until 3 days ang wala akong mapangamoy. So, it's not normal, of course. But if you have that, since we have a pandemic, better make sure it's not COVID. And if it's COVID, and all, what can we do? So, what can we do actually is to make our immune system strong. So, what can we do to make our immune system strong? Just eat right, and no need to eat when you're not hungry. And so, there's even this theory that the loss of sense of smell in COVID and in most viral infection actually is a signal for our body to stop eating. You know why? Because 50 to 80% of our sense of taste, the flavor that we feel whenever we eat, is actually brought about by sense of smell. Try to do an experiment. Try to eat something while closing your nose, and try to chew it and see if you can feel the flavor. Immediately the flavor will be lost. So that is one theory when it comes to anosmia, or the loss of sense of smell when it comes to COVID and other. Actually, it's a common thing with viral infection, and whenever anybody is having flu, it's just that it became popular with COVID because it's now making a pandemic. But generally, any kind of flu, so it can be other flu that's not COVID. So don't worry, stop worrying, do whatever you need to do, because stress can even worsen your condition. Stay positive always, okay? Zerma Oyster, Doc, is it normal po ba magkasipon? Oh yes, that's it. Will the Cruz, hello. Ang galing niyo po, Doc. Sensitive din po ako sa veggies. Yes, so that's why I love veggies supposedly, but I'm really, really sensitive. So I just put them like aside, really a light side dish of vegetables. So you like sweet potatoes, Xavier? I know you. I can see you very, very lean. So, of all the three things, fruits, root crops, and grains, actually, our body can tolerate more on the root crops and tubers, because those are mostly still part of our natural food. It's just that we have to be aware whenever we take them, and of course we don't need to overeat them as well. They're supposed to make us feel full if there's no food around in times of fasting. So that's why I believe it's really important to incorporate fasting with our day-to-day life. So Roxanne De Los Santos, Coach, I have PCOS po. What is the best fasting time for me? So it will be up to you, but as for me, it will be dependent on your eating window. But in general, fasting schedule of 16 hours is like for me a minimum when you want to heal something, and if you want to optimize, really a minimum of 18 hours. Why 18 hours? So that we make sure that our insulin level will go back to the basic, because even if with low carb, eating proteins, eating fats will still have insulin effect, but it's not the spike of insulin. Okay, so having doing intermittent fasting of at least 18 hours will make sure that those little elevation in your insulin will go back to normal each and every day. It's really good to have a period where your insulin is at baseline level, so that glucagon will kick in. So what is glucagon? Glucagon is the opposite of insulin. That is when insulin tries to store glucose, glucagon tries to mobilize glucose. It creates glucose so that it can be supplied to other parts of our body, needing it in times where we are not fasting, we are not feasting, or we are not eating. So there should be a balance of glucagon and insulin in our body, because the usual diet of eating 3 meals a day, especially high carb diet, it's making the body in a chronic state of high insulin level and almost zero or non-existent, very very low level of glucagon, and that is not good. Okay, so yes, that is the basic, savior. Thank you for that. That's the basic pathway. Glucose raises insulin, and insulin raises diabetes, because our body, our cells, is not actually made to be accepting insulin all year round, all day, every day. So it, because it knows it's damaging, so what it does, it protects the cells to not accept insulin. But the problem lies now, because we still continue to eat glucose. So because by nature glucose is not readily available as it is available now. So the problem now is that our body doesn't know what to do with so much of those sugar, and that's already leading us to the many metabolic problems that are associated with chronic elevation of insulin. That is what we call as insulin resistance. So diabetes is just one of those: chronic heart attack, chronic heart disease, fatty liver, elevated cholesterol, heart attacks, stroke. Those are all byproducts of insulin resistance. Okay? Vanessa QA, may ibang doktor po who still recommends 1 cup a day even to diabetic. Could be why hindi mawin ang pasyente sa maintenance med? Yes, that could really be it. But I tell you, those doctors who are recommending that do not ever wish ill to the patient. It's just that they have not they have underestimated the effect of sugar in our system. Okay, because even the dietary guidelines can even allow, I have a patient that's been advised to eat 60 grams a day, so she already felt happy that she was allowed to at least lower carbs of 60 grams per day. She thought it's per day, but when she clarified, no, 60 grams per meal, and that's where the problem lies. Okay, so the definition of what's a low carbohydrate is different from the American Diabetes Association and our definition actually as low carb practitioners, like for example groups like Diet Doctor, who is actually promoting low carb nutrition as a means to heal. So and that doctor, I promise you, it's not intentional for that doctor to push the patient to eat like with a real purpose for the patient not to wean off from medicine. That's not true. All doctors want their patients to heal. Okay, and it's just that if they have the same illness, if that doctor is also having diabetes, what they are prescribing you, what medications they are giving you, is also the same medications that they are taking. So it's just that that's the only thing that they know. It's also because that is how they are trained. And yes, it's not that available, this kind of knowledge, because it is not part of the standard training when it comes to management, especially with diabetes. That's why also we are having this LCF masterclass to help bridge the gap from the absence of learning when it comes to proper nutrition and how nutrition is really, really directly related to our health, because we thought before that nutrition is just a an important, may have or may not be done, but the most important part is medicine. So if I can recall, our bulk of time we spent in medicine, maybe 50% was dedicated to basic sciences, but the other 50%, 45% of that is related to medicine, how medicines interact with our body, how we need medicines, and barely 5% is related to how food really is the cause and how we can actually manage by dietary modification. So all of those guidelines actually will tell you to address a certain illness with lifestyle modification and dietary modifications in the first place. However, as to how to do it exactly, that is the problem, because it was not stated there. And of course, a very low carbohydrate diet was not even promoted, especially because nobody would sponsor it. Who would sponsor those kinds of suggestions? The vegetables, the cabbage, is there a cabbage industry? Is there a lettuce industry? Is there an organic meat industry who can sponsor that? Of course not. Nothing will sponsor that. And how about fasting? What pharmaceutical company can benefit from fasting? Of course not, because fasting will take away the needs of many things. So now maybe some, for to some degree, maybe the electrolytes, but those are minimal. And even those electrolytes, you don't need to buy in tablet form. You can even have them in your food. There are electrolytes, locally available electrolytes, like say for example sodium. You can buy sodium bicarbonate in tablets, but you know that bicarbonate is also baking soda. Sodium chloride in our kitchen, it's just salt. So all of those. Potassium can be cream of tartar. So those are the necessary things that can actually be maximized if only you know what you're doing. So that's why we have this LCF masterclass, not just for people who are battling diseases, who are looking into preventive medicine, preventing their illnesses. But I'm so glad that more than 10% of our applicants are actually, our enrollees are actually doctors. And we hope to increase more of the doctors knowledgeable about low carb. So of course, they don't need to really practice low carb in all of their patients. It's just that it is good that they are knowledgeable about low carb, so that when they see patient who can benefit more with low carb, they can help them when they know how to do it. But if that doctor itself doesn't know how to do low carb, so for sure, how can you teach something you are not knowledgeable as well? So what they will give the patient is something that they're knowledgeable, and that is the standard practice, giving of medications. Okay. So Miriam Beton, hello. Ashima Chauhan, do steroids prevent the body from getting into ketosis? Partly, that could be, yes. But without insulin, it can go both ways. Not really full, but steroids, it will still dependent on dose. So amount of steroids is still a factor. How high is your dose? But generally, steroids can continue to make your body make more glucose than it needs. Okay, so yes, it could partly, to some extent, prevent the body from getting into ketosis. Hello, Giselle. Hello, Jem Villarreal. Timing topic about what I'm going through about GERD. Thanks, Doc. You're welcome. Alan Kunanan, what do you think of the Japanese 1975 diet, high carb whole foods? Remember, even if it's high carb but whole foods, that's actually okay. That's actually okay. If you're part of the masterclass, you'll understand that we are not low carb fanatics, meaning I can believe that a high carb diet can actually become sustainable as well. But as long as it's not high in refined sugar, as long as it's not high in fructose, it does not elevate insulin, meaning you're eating high carbohydrates, but mostly tubers, mostly root crops, mostly vegetables, all of those, and it will always need the essential nutrients like essential fats and essential amino acids. So there are many factors are in play. So it is possible that can be manageable, that can be a success. But that's why I'm saying that for me, low carb is the most sustainable because it's one of the most practical as well. It's easy to apply, it's not restrictive. You can have a lot of food choices as long as you know which ones need to be avoided. Okay? So, Giselle, can I eat quinoa with low carb diet? So quinoa is still grains. So it's lower in calories as compared to rice. But the problem for me with quinoa is that people who are eating it in replacement of rice, they thought that since it's okay, they tend to eat more actually than they would have eaten it as a rice. So that mindset is still for me not good unless you have the necessary discipline, you have the necessary mindset, and you can just limit your quinoa in half cup a day. Then by all means go eat quinoa. Okay, so that's why quinoa is not under our danger list, meaning that you should really avoid. But under grains, it's our caution list, meaning you can accommodate them, but you should be mindful of the other foods that you're eating it with, the amount of food that you're eating, and be very, very sensitive on how you will feel right after eating them. Okay? Thank you so much. So Al James, we feel the effect of low carb. Great, thank you. That's so nice. RC Tan Rivera, taking Epsom salt with water. Okay, what benefits I could get from it? So Epsom salt, I mentioned a while ago. So sodium, potassium, and magnesium. Those are the most essential electrolytes. So homemade or like natural sources that you can actually look into taking. So salt can be from sodium can be from salt and baking soda. So we have potassium. You can actually get them from cream of tartar or new salt, NU salt. So it's like a non-sodium salt. So instead of sodium chloride, it's potassium chloride. So it's potassium. And for magnesium, actually, you can have Epsom salt. But make sure when you take Epsom salt, it should be food grade, because there are Epsom salt that are agricultural grade, the ones we put in our plants, or the cosmetic grade, the ones we do with our foot bath. So as much as possible, if you have to put Epsom salt as part of your electrolyte supplement, so we better make sure it's food grade. Okay. So how about whey protein? If you're physically active and you really need some muscle building, you can take whey protein. But whenever you take whey protein, you have to consider this as part of your daily allowance for proteins, and that is about 70 to 100 grams of protein in a day. Okay. So as for me, although whey protein taste good, especially if they have so much flavor, but those flavors are usually artificial. So for me, I would rather eat my proteins. Okay, I like to eat my protein, so that could be in meat, in fish, in pork, in chicken, and even in nuts. So but if you are like heavily exercising, doing intensive workout, so a pre-workout cup of whey protein can actually do you good when it comes to muscle building, especially if you just did an 16 to 20 hours fast. Okay. So hi Doc from Olongapo. Hello Angela May Perenya, Ashima Kauhan, James watching from Ozamis, Misamis Orient Occidental. Hello, thank you. I have a lot of friends in Misamis, Samis. I have Dr. Marisa Gurney Machaconder. She is my good friend in medical school. So Mina de la Cruz, hello Doc, I'm feeling great now. I can fast for 23 to 24 hours 3 times a week. That's good. And 18 hours for 4 days. Wow, parang pareho tayong schedule. Tama nga sinabi mo, mas madalas kumain, mas madalas magutom. I'm into mindful eating now dahil sa mga explanations mo. Thank you very much. That is a very, very good feedback. I love hearing stories like those and knowing that at least one person is doing well. That's already good enough for me. So Maria Colin Gutierrez, hi. Chris Alipio, so much love. Teresa Jacinto De Baker, hello. Connie Anthony Fabilar, good evening. Teresa Jacinto, what are the possible or valid reasons to break a fast? Is there such a thing as over fasting? Over fasting would be fasting even if you are already underweight or already kakiksik. So kakiksik is just a malnourished state of almost like looking skin and bones. You no longer have fats to lose. You no longer you already depleted your proteins, your muscles, so that's already a very bad sign. So that's already over fasting. Okay, And of course, the reason for fasting. Why are you fasting in the first place? So it's important to really establish why do you fast in the first place, so that you'll know your limit, you'll know your goals, and once you reach them, anything that's too much is never okay. Okay? So, Mary Sin, hello Doc, bakit po kaya lagi mataas ang FBS ko pero 2 hours after meal ay okay naman po? So, try to watch what you're eating. It could be due to what you're eating, okay? So, possible signs that we should break a fast. Actually, especially for those who are already appetite corrected. So, say for example, they no longer depend on time on when to eat. They're appetite corrected when they know sensitive when they are sensitive enough with their bodies that they know when they need nutrition. Okay, so if you haven't checked my YouTube channel, I actually made a video on the different types of hunger, so you'll know how to differentiate them. And if you know that it's really a nutritional hunger, then you can eat. So in general, especially for those who are long-term fasters like myself, I've been fasting for 4 days to 12 days. So I really know what's the feeling when I already am deep into a fast and I no longer feel hungry. And they say that the return of hunger is actually a sign of you breaking a fast. But if you're hungry after only 10 hours, so that's not really real hunger. It's just an empty stomach syndrome. Macantaro Aloe Vera, good evening. Maria Colin Gutierrez, hello po. Chris Alipio, pwede po pwede kainin kapag nainom ng antibiotics. So you can just, actually antibiotics will work best even on empty stomach. It's just that they can be irritant. So others might feel having stomach ache after taking certain antibiotics that are gastric irritants. So that's why certain antibiotics are advised to be taken with food. But with food, it doesn't need to be high carb. Again, you can just take uh, a piece of fish, a piece of meat, or an egg. That's all. Okay? Rico Fernando, good evening. Zerma Oser, thank you. Maraming natutunan. Thank you. Hi, Sister Corazon. Bukag. Hello. Hello. I can see a lot of our LCF Masterclass students here. Annabelle, Doc, what to do po for a few days na feeling thirsty, dry mouth, and numbness, tingling sa fingers po. So those are mostly dehydration, either from water and electrolytes. You make sure that you drink them, and with intake of water, try to not take it in bulk. Okay, like you will drink 2 straight glasses now and then not drink for 3 hours and then drink 3 glasses again. So as much as possible, you try to divide them accordingly. So actually for us, we used to do that, but the moment we incorporated dry fasting each and every day, so our last water intake is around 8 in the evening. So by morning, actually, we start drinking by around 10 in the morning, and we notice that our thirst signal are actually becoming normal. So every hour we can drink a glass of water, and after an hour we already feel so thirsty. Those kind of things we never felt before. But so I call that actually thirst correction as well, because sometimes we have been having irregular water intake that our thirst is no longer that reliable. So sometimes we can go on whole day without feeling thirsty, but our body is actually needing more water. Okay, so you have to be very sensitive with your body as well. And we still have a lot of questions, but our time is almost up, so we already have a minute left. Thank you so much. I will get another Carmen Brett Sher, Medical Director of Diet Doctor. Yes, I love Diet Doctor. I'm so happy to be a part now of Diet Doctor Glossary of Low Carb Practitioners Worldwide. So, yes, we have a page, Life Without Rice. You can get inspiration from there when it comes to food. Safe list is posted in our Life Without Rice group. Thank you so much, my dear brother Alvin, for doing that. And Low Carb Feasting and Fasting Community is also another group, because Life Without Rice is mainly dedicated for food inspirations, but for other queries and questions, Low Carb Feasting and Fasting Community is very open for those who are seeking advice or tips, for those who are into low carb and fasting for quite a long time. LCF Masterclass, however, I'm sorry, I cannot invite everyone because it's an exclusive private group for LCF Masterclass Batch 1 enrollees. Thank you very much. I think Adlai rice, somewhat similar with quinoa rice. Okay, so it's still grain, only have lots of fiber, lots of lower calories, but still eventually that can have some insulin effect. If new salt is not available here, any other substitute, cream of tartar, okay, you can have that. Okay, so I think we already have so much. Thank you so much for all your questions, but don't worry, we will do another live Q&A comes Wednesday and this coming Friday. I'm so excited. Say I would like to say hi and special greetings to each and every member. 110, 109 members of LCF Masterclass Batch 1. Thank you so much, and I'm so excited. I'm gonna prepare again for another week, another Saturday of jam-packed learning. And of course, it's not just something about medical learning, but it's also about mind setting and overall wellness in general. Thank you. Have a good day, each and everyone. Have a productive week ahead. Always remember to stay low carb for us to always stay safe. Thank you. Bye bye.